What do you call a sad strawberry?
I don't know.
A blueberry.
Hello and welcome to Extending Your Harvest Through Dehydrating. Today we're going to be talking about not just preserving foods you have in your home or your garden, but we're also going to be talking about how this is an activity that really is a family activity. And so today I'm Jen Lauer, and we have 3 generations of family members today here with us. My mom, Ginny Bryant, and then I have my 4 kids. This is Ethan, he's 12, Jacob is 10, Garrett is 7, and Claire is the youngest at 4. And even though they're all still young people, there is something that all of them can do with this process of dehydrating. Before we get to that, however, my mom's going to talk a little bit about the history of dehydrating for us.
Yes, what I want to talk about is there's at least 4 kinds of dehydrating. One is the sun, which they've been doing it for centuries, where they put lines out and just hang their meat or whatever herbs they wanted to dry. And the other one is oven drying, which you can put your stuff in the oven and turn it as low as you can go and prop open the door, put your stuff in there on cookie sheets and keep checking it, but you can do it in your oven. And another way is electric dehydrating, which we will come back to, but there's different ways and ones I've found that work better than others. And the last one is microwave. And if you have herbs, because they're more fragile, you can do them in your microwave on defrost, and it usually only, you put a paper towel down, put your herbs on it, and it takes maybe 2 or 3 minutes to do a little bit of the herbs. And those are the 4 ways that I was going to tell you about.
All right, the first type of food we're going to work with today are the fruits. So Claire over here, as I said, even though she's not really ready to handle a knife, she can still participate in this by simply taking her grapes off of the stem. Go ahead, babe. And then you just put them on the tray. And once you have your tray filled, it usually takes between 24 and 48 hours for the grapes to actually form, depending on your dehydrator. And really, if you want a pint jar like we have here, it takes between 2 and 3 trays for that amount. And that's really all it is. For someone who's small to help out, don't need a knife, it's an activity they can do. It's very easy for them, something they can start with. And then Garrett here is working on some bananas. And lots of people, yep, that's great. Lots of people they buy banana chips or maybe pineapple, the dried stuff you get from the store, which has a ton of extra sugar in it. And these are nice because they're still sweet, but you don't have all the extra added sugar. And you can tell he is using a knife, but you could use a butter knife if you're not comfortable with that yet with someone who's young. And really, again, all you do is peel your banana, slice it up, and then put it on your tray. And these take somewhere between 8 to 10 hours, again, depending on your dehydrator, and also the thickness. And if you can see, his banana chips are not all going to be the same thickness, and that's okay, because it's an activity he can do, and it just takes a little bit longer for some of them. These stickier fruits, like the strawberries we're going to talk about in a minute, and the bananas, we try to rotate and flip them over part way through so that they don't stick to your screen as you're dehydrating them. All right, Jacob over here is working on some strawberries. Now, this is probably the favorite fruit we do. Everyone loves strawberries. And the strawberries, again, are very simple. We've already washed these. And then he just takes the stem off, slices them up, and puts them on the tray. And again, you're probably going to want to flip these over about halfway through because they will kind of glue to your dehydrator tray if they're not flipped over. And these take, again, about 8 to 10 hours. And another important thing about dried fruit is they don't have to be super hard and brittle. You really want them to be a little bit pliable. Just because we say dehydrate doesn't mean it has to be brittle and hard as a fruit. All right, and lastly, over here, we have Ethan.
Hey, Jacob.
What?
Why didn't the 2 worms go into the ark with an apple?
Why?
Because they had to come in pairs.
Haha, very funny. Okay, so Ethan over here, he actually has already moved on. Hold on a minute. But what we're talking about right now are the apples. And he was using the apple peeler core, which is nice because it does it all at once. He chose to take the peel off of his apples, but as you can see, sometimes it's nice just to leave them on for color. If you have green apples and red apples, if you're doing them maybe for gifts, which is something my mom does a lot, she will actually dry fruit for her siblings as part of a Christmas gift. Kind of makes it look pretty in the jar. And so you can either leave it on or take the peel off if you want to. And really it's just a matter of putting the apples on the tray. And then if you really like cinnamon apples, that's something you can also add on top and then dry them. And again, very simple to do, even for the youngest people. It takes about 8 to 12 hours, again, depending on your dehydrator. And if for some reason your dehydrator, you're not done with it and you have to shut it off at night, that's okay. We don't let ours run all night either. You can just plug it back in the morning and start again. It really doesn't damage anything you're drying so much. All right, and my mom is going to talk now about the different types of dehydrators we have used as a family.
Yes, this is the one that's probably most economical for most people. That's what we started with, and it came with like 6 trays. This is for fruit roll-ups, and the airflow is horizontal here, or this is vertical. I'm sorry, vertical. So all the air comes up through and it dries it, but what you have to do with this one more likely is you pull the bottom one out and put it on top, and I check it every couple hours as I'm drying. So that's that kind. Well, 2 years ago my kids for my birthday gift got me this one, and it is awesome. And it has like 9 racks. It has mesh, like when they're cutting up herbs or anything small that might go down through. Chives always go down through, so you can put that in on your rack. These are stainless steel racks, easy to clean. And oh, and what I like is, like, you have to shut this off at night if you don't want it to go. But this one has a time. It goes all the way up to 20 hours, which I don't know what would take that long. And the temperature, and in the instructions it'll tell you, I think it goes up to 158 degrees. And like when you're making jerky or something, you want it high. When I was drying basil, I did put it in here, and you can temp it down to make it lower. I think it goes to 95 degrees, something like that. Anyway, so you can check, and I have a book that came with it, tells me how much time and what temperature to do it at. So I really, really like it. And another awesome feature is the air comes from the back and blows across here, which dries it more uniform. And sometimes I still do turn it from one side to another because it dries faster closer to the fan, but it works. I just really love this one. So, and this is a Magic Mill. I know a lot of other ones. This is a name brand, but there's a lot of companies out there that have gone with doing it this way, and I really do fill them up. And also, I want to tell you that you can put different things, like I'm doing fruits, and I might want to do a couple things of strawberries, couple of peaches. I got pears going. Well, anyways, the only thing that I recommend you don't do is don't do onions or anything that is a strong smelling. I don't even do jerky with anything else because it's got its smell, but because it will go through all your other stuff. So that's what I'm recommending on that. So, and I also want to tell you that this is the first thing I ever made. I was interested in making jerky, and we used it on here. So we did go through it. Oh, and it tells you can take your fruit roll-up sheet and you put it underneath all of them. I can't get a grip on it. You can put it all the way down the bottom, and then it will catch the drippings, and it's a lot easier to clean that way. So that is the first thing I ever did. And so anyways, I think that's, I didn't mention about the fruit rolls. That's the other thing. The kids really like these in their lunch pail. I did peach, and because blackberries are ready now, I did a blackberry roll-up. And basically, I put those through my blender and just pour it onto the sheets. And those, you saw those. This is the fruit roll-up sheets that they gave me with this dehydrator. And I learned, spray it with just a little Pam spray. If not, you got a kind of a sticky mess trying to get it out of there. So, but the kids love those in their lunch pails, and it's all fruit. So, but that's something that we made quite often between jerky and fruit roll-ups. And then we went to the other things. So that's what I wanted to tell you about that.
All right, and so now honestly, fruit is probably the most fun thing to do and will get consumed the fastest. But there are other things you can also do. Not only the jerky and fruit roll-ups like my mom was talking about, but also herbs and vegetables. So over here with Claire, she is still working on the grapes, obviously, but she was doing an herb over here, which is the mint. As I had talked about earlier, we use a lot of mint in iced tea, and all she really is doing, you can do it two ways. You can put the whole stem on, just the way you picked it after you've rinsed it off. You can put it on there and just dry it. Or, as she was doing, you can take off the leaves ahead of time if you'd rather do that. But again, it's something very simple. Little fingers are really good at it. It's just an activity you can do together. Makes them feel like they're helping out. And then the next herb we're going to look at are the chives. And he is trying over here to use this herb scissors, which aren't working super well. At our house, often we will just lay the herbs on the tray and then cut them up afterwards. Again, there's lots of different ways you can do this. Because we don't have these nice trays like are on this dehydrator, we just use a paper towel and it catches anything that might go through. Not a big deal. It's just a simpler way of doing it. And again, herbs take much less time to dry than any kind of your fruit or vegetable that we're talking about. Over here, Jacob is doing another very simple vegetable. We're just doing some frozen corn, again, on a paper towel. You let it dry. They like taking it out into the woods while they are hunting. But it's one of those things, it's just a nice family tradition. My grandpa always used to dry corn when my mom went out hunting with him, and that's just something we've kept up throughout the years. And the last one here is zucchini, which seems a little odd maybe for a vegetable, but what we like to do is, much like the apples, we'll spread them out on a tray, and then you can actually add a little Italian seasoning on them, and they're kind of like chips. So you can add any kind of spices you like, but Italian seasoning works really well, and it's just a healthy chip choice, I guess you could say. And also, before we move on, I know some of you are like, wow, that's a lot of stuff, and we don't know how to do that, that went too fast. There is so much information online. You really just have to kind of start looking for things. This is just to give you an idea of where you can go with it. If you're really experimental and you like to try things, this is great because you can experiment all day. And often at our house, it's more of an experiment than it's actually a job. And you never know quite how it's gonna work out. So if you're really into that kind of thing, you just go for it. If you need more information, just check out the web. And really, once your imagination gets going, there's really no end to what you can try to do. Even if it's just decorative, like oranges and things like that, there's just an endless supply of ideas out there for you. All right, and the other thing I'm gonna talk about real quick is storage. So you see there's lots of these little pint jars, glass jars, and they're not canned, they're not sealed. These are just a regular ring and flat, and you can reuse them after you wash the jar, put something else in them. This is the best way to store any of your dried products because actually some of these, like these ones right here, were actually from last year's fair. There's no mold, they aren't any worse than they were when we brought them and entered them last August, and I mean they're still edible. So there's really, it's the best way to store them. Some people do prefer to dry their stuff and then put it in the freezer, either in a jar or a Ziploc bag or a plastic container, which is fine too, but part of the reason it's nice to dehydrate is because you don't take up your freezer space. So jars are really it's the best option if that's what you're going to do. And so before we end today, my mom is going to go ahead and walk us through a couple of very common questions about dehydrating.
Yes. I did want to point out that now that he cut these chives up so nice, and this is what they will look in the jar, if you can tell. I chop them up, and they're awesome for baked potatoes. That's what we usually use them for, or just a little bit in a soup or stew. Anyways, and I guess these are the raisins, what she's doing, and she has some raisin in a jar. So I wanted to point that out. So, and I did mention jerky, and I do want to tell you that you just get a thin or a lean piece of beef, and I slice it about 1/4 of an inch thick. You find your favorite brine that you like to put it in, your marinade, and soak it. Sometimes I go 2 days, and then I pat it off a little bit on paper towel and just slide it in, and then you've got your own jerky, and that's awesome. So I want to tell you a couple of the most common questions you might be thinking. How long does a fruit or food last? And she mentioned, I mean, it says from 4 months to a year, but you can say this is coming on a year, and it all looks very, very fresh. I've kept my stuff, especially my herbs, up to 2 years, and after that, I was cleaning my cupboard, and I did get rid of some of those, because I even like peppers. I do all sorts of things, anything you think, what do I like to drop into my soup or my stew? And I dehydrate it, and I have it right there in the cupboard, and I put just a pinch in there, and it makes awesome soups and stews. So, can you dehydrate fruits and vegetables together? And yes, you can, but I told you about the strong taste or smell of the vegetables. It's not recommended, but we have done lots of different fruits in one at the same time. You just pull them out and check them for the dryness. So, what are the advantages of dehydrating? They are nutritious. It's the most nutritious way to preserve your vitamins and minerals, because I also do canning, and I didn't realize till I read this that when you can, sometimes it will destroy some of your vitamins and the nutritious. So this is actually a better way to do than canning. So, and you can do anything, everything in your garden. And I wanted to add also something I learned before. You have something you think, oh, I really need to do something with this. A leftover, you can just put it in on your thing, whether it's mashed potatoes or whatever, you can put it here and you can dry it and use it for another time. So there's really no reason you could throw out your leftovers, just get them before they're bad. So, and dehydrating, it takes up much less room, and if you're into backpacking or you like snacks in your bag, it's much lighter than carrying a can or something. So those are advantages to this. But we've had a lot of fun as a family, and we've probably been dehydrating for close to 30 years or 35 years. 35 years, and we've done a lot of things. So, and I hope you enjoy this. So, go ahead.
Yes, thank you so much for joining us today. We really hope this has been a great intro to making some delicious dehydrated treats for your family and including them in that process. That's really what we're emphasizing today. So before we go...
Hey Jacob. What does Miss Grape love most?
I don't know.
Raising kids.
Raising kids, and that's what we're really doing here, trying to just make this a family affair of growing together in all the activities that we do. So thank you very much for joining us today. You guys want to say bye?
Bye.
Bye.
Torture's over.